around the turn of the century, just around the time that my great uncle was getting tattooed, a department store in London called Gamage's, a kind of Victorian, Edwardian equivalent to something like Debenhams or House of Fraser or something, very, very briefly sold tattoo machines over the counter, as a commercial item. And when I finally, and I know I tried to find more out about this and I couldn't find anything else. It's not mentioned anywhere else. These machines weren't visible on the internet. There was very little even about Gamage's to store. And so when I finally met Rambo and I had the honour and privilege to go up and see his collection, one of the things I asked him about was that. And he pulled out this amazing piece of paper. I mean, his whole collection, his whole museum is full of amazing bits of paper. It's just an astonishing place to be. But he pulled up this bit of paper and it was a page from a catalogue, like an Argos catalogue or a Sears catalogue for the Americans listening. But Victorian, of uncertain date. There was no date on there. But on it, basically, at the top of the page, it said electrical novelties. And on the page, there was a sort of series of fun little kind of light up toys, including sort of chattering skulls and clown faces, actually some quite unpleasant to modernize, like racial caricatures, which would have kind of electric eyes, which they call in the catalogue illuminated grotesque buttonholes. Grotesque masks have transparent coloured eyes with electric bulbs fitted in the back, to which is attached a flexible cord connected to a battery. Fun for parties and carnivals. There was a light up kind of rose, all kinds of stuff on this page. And right there on the bottom left-hand corner of this page was a tattoo machine, was a rectangular tattooing machine, as illustrated, best finish, 18 shillings and 9p. 3p post, rectangular tattooing machine with 2 terminals, japanned finish, by which they mean a kind of metallic finish, a bit cheaper, 13 and 9. And you could also buy colours, tattooing colours in bottles, green, red, brown, blue or yellow, Indian ink as well. So this just absolutely blew my mind, and it remains, which is why I'm talking to you about today, I think one of the most influential pieces of archival material, pieces of paper I've ever looked at and thought about in my career as a tattoo historian. Because this one bit of paper, for me, not only helped me make sense of my own family history, which I'll come on to in a second, but also just completely made me realise how much the mainstream storytelling about tattooing is completely upended when you actually look at the things that tattoo historians and tattoo collectors have kept safe over the years. This one bit of paper, right, which shows that for at least a time, tattooing machines were sold essentially as toys in catalogues in a big department store at the turn of the 20th century, just completely changed what I thought I knew about the history of tattooing. This idea that you could walk into a shop, into a toy shop, and alongside your little light up policeman's face and alongside your little light up skull buttonhole, you could pick up a tattoo machine and take it home. And I don't know, I can't prove, of course, that my great uncle was tattooed with a Gamage's machine or tattooed his sister with a Gamage's machine. And in fact, certainly Gamage's weren't the only people who were selling machines like this. Some performers at the circuses, for example, we know now also sold tattooing, and you could buy tattoo kits, more like hand tattooing kits actually, by mail, more of which I'll talk about in a second as well. But the very fact that tattoo machines were available over the counter to anyone who wanted to buy them just completely blew my mind. And then I wanted to find more of these, and I wanted to find a copy of this for myself to get a good quality scan of. Rambo very kindly sent me a kind of phone snap of this page. But I knew that I'd want to kind of publish this, and I'd want to talk more about it. And so I went looking for these, and I assumed, because I'm an academic, I can get most stuff that I want to look at, it's in libraries, if somewhere, so I went to libraries and I looked, and I couldn't find hardly any Gamage's catalogues at all. None in the British Library, which is the main deposit library in the United Kingdom, where pretty much everything that's been published should be kept. There were a couple in the Victoria and Albert Museum in the National Art Library there, but none from a bit later. None of the ones in that collection had Gamage's machines in them, tattoo machines in them. I looked in regional museums. I found one or two catalogues scattered around in kind of random libraries around the country. I emailed the archivists. I asked them if any of those that they had tattoo machines in them. They always told me no. I set up a standing eBay search and a search on other auction houses, places where local parochial auctions come up, often now have websites. So I set up a standing search to email me anytime Gamage's catalogues came up for sale. They very, very rarely did. If they ever did, I'd email and I'd be told no tattooing machines in these. So I was looking, and this just really kind of deepened my resolve, right? Or deepened the sense of how important I thought this piece of paper was, because this information, had it not been for Rambo keeping it, understanding, I think, just how important tattooing was and how beautiful and exciting and strange and just how kind of weird this particular page was. I don't know how it came into his collection, but he and presumably a collector before him had judged this important enough to look after. And it was a piece of knowledge, a piece of history that wasn't anywhere else to be found. It wasn't mentioned in any books. It wasn't on the internet. It wasn't in really, not even many tattoo artists knew about this. And some collectors who did know about it, were similarly kind of didn't know a huge amount either, even if any of it existed. So this really was a perfect encapsulation, I think, of everything I've been trying to sum up about what I am doing when I'm talking about tattoo history, because I'm trying to take pretty standard parts often of historical discourse, things that, aren't necessarily parts of tattoo history, localized, but are part of broader histories. And of course, toy shops and high street retail is one of those things. And then I'm trying to work with things that are hidden away, things that private collectors have looked after, but which haven't ended up in museums, haven't ended up in libraries, haven't ended up in universities, haven't ended up in big textbooks until now. And I'm trying to join those dots up to tell a really interesting story. And in this one bit of paper, right, all of this stuff is happening.